Janaha, a person. Bhagavate, under the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vidadhita, may offer. Manam, worship. Yat, that. Cha, indeed. Atmane, for his own benefit. Pratimukasya, of the reflection of the face in the mirror. Yata, just as. Mukhashi, the decoration of the face. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Suhotra Swami, Prabhupada Ki Jai. Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always fully satisfied in Himself. Therefore, when something is offered to Him, the offering by the Lord's mercy is for the benefit of the devotee, for the Lord does not need service from anyone. To give an example, if one's face is decorated, the reflection of one's face in a mirror is also seen to be decorated. Purport. In Bhakti Yoga, it is recommended that a devotee follow 9 principles: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. The service of glorifying the Lord by hearing, chanting, and so on is not, of course, meant for the benefit of the Lord. This devotional service is recommended for the benefit of the devotee. The Lord is always glorious whether the devotee glorifies Him or not. But if the devotee engages in glorifying the Lord, the devotee himself automatically becomes glorious. Cheto Darpana Marjana Bhavamaha Dhavagni Nirvapana. By glorifying the Lord constantly, the living entity becomes purified in the core of his heart, and thus he can understand that he does not belong to the material world, but is a spirit soul whose actual activity is to advance in Krishna consciousness, so that he may become free from the material clutches. Thus, the blazing fire of material existence is immediately extinguished. Bhava Mahadavagni Nivapana. A foolish person is amazed that Krishna orders Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamikam Sharanam Braja. Abandon all varieties of religious activities and just surrender unto me. Some foolish scholars even say that this is too much to demand. But this demand is not for the benefit of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, it is for the benefit of human society. If human beings individually and collectively surrender everything to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in full Krishna consciousness, all of human society will benefit. One who does not dedicate everything to the Supreme Lord is described in this verse as avidusha, a rascal. In Bhagavad Gita 7:15, the Lord Himself speaks in the same way. Namam duskritino mudha prapadyante nararama maya pahittagyana asurim bhavamashrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Because of ignorance and misfortune, the atheists and the Naradhamas, the lowest of men, do not surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although the Supreme Lord Krishna is full in Himself, He appears in different yugas to demand the surrender of the conditioned souls, so that they will benefit by becoming free from the material clutches. In conclusion, the more we engage in Krishna consciousness and render service unto the Lord, the more we benefit. Krishna does not need service from any of us. Navatmana Prabhu Rayam Nija Lava Purno Manam Janada Vidusha Karuno Vrinite Yadyaj Jano Bhagavate Vilathita Manam Tatschat Mane Prati Mukasya Yata Mukashri. Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always fully satisfied in Himself. Therefore, when something is offered to Him, the offering by the Lord's mercy is for the benefit of the devotee, for the Lord does not need service from anyone. To give an example, if one's face is decorated, the reflection of one's face in a mirror is also seen to be decorated. Mukam karuti bachalam tangam nanayategre. Vikripatadam bande shri gurunina tadunam. So the tendency in the material world is to be atheistic, because that is a qualification for coming here. To reject one's eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. And if one is not totally atheistic, then, although there may be some piety, that piety is also corrupted by materialism, by selfishness. So therefore, we see even prominently in the Vedic dharma, or Vedic culture of spiritual life, prominently there is this conditional religion. Conditional means the seva or the bhakta, so-called, they depend upon some material return. Material return is expected. This is not an unfounded criticism, because Lord Krishna himself tells us in Bhagavad Gita. He says to Arjuna, Trigunya Vishya Veda, Nistrigunya Bhavarjuna. He says mainly the Vedas. When we look at the Vedic religious culture, you will see in the main Trigunya Vishaya. You will see activities under the three modes. That means conditional activities, materialistic activities in sattva, rajas, or tamas. And they are aimed at vishaya. Vishaya means sense gratification. Although they're following scripture, and there is some tapasya, some yajna, all of that is there. But the ultimate goal is not to please God. The ultimate goal is sense gratification, vishaya. So, therefore, Lord Krishna, we've just heard in the purport, he gives this conclusion, which Srila Prabhupada says it amazes the foolish people. He says, Sarva Dharmam Prityaja. He says you can kick out all this religion. Just kick it right out. We don't need this. We do not benefit from this. The foolish people are amazed. What? What is Lord Krishna speaking here? What is he preaching? Sarva Dharman Prityaja. But he qualifies, he actually brings it to the point of ultimate religion in the next line, where he says, Mamikam Sharanam Braja. You surrender to me. Because Vadaischa Sarve Arhameva Vedya Vedanta Krit Veda Veda Chaham. These Vedas, they come from me. Don't follow them in your way, follow them in my way. Mamekam Sharanam Braja. That will be following the Vedas. If you just surrender to me. And never mind this dharma, artha, kama, moksha. This is called the Chatur Varga. Materialistic people, they extract from the Vedas these four goals, Chatur Varga. That I follow dharma, but this is dharma according to my conception. Prabhupada explained this in Bhagavad Gita lecture, what this exactly, very nice explanation, exactly what this materialistic dharma means. What is this? Often we wonder, what is this dharma Lord Krishna is saying to give up? What is it that he says to kick out? That is, as Prabhupada said, bhoga dharma and tyaga dharma. That one approaches the Vedas looking for bhoga, sense pleasure. So he's studying the Vedas in this way. That actually means, technically speaking, karma kanda. He approaches the Vedas with that view in mind. There is a whole philosophy. You may know there are 6 systems of Vedic philosophy, 6 schools of teaching that have been derived from the Vedas by various sages. So one of the very prominent ones, which is still going on in India, actually all around the world in different forms, very prominent. It's Karma Mimamsa. The title of the school says it all. Mimamsa means to study very carefully. But karma means, of course, fruitive work. So they approach the Vedas. They're very serious in their study of the Vedas, great scholars, but what is the goal of that study? Karma. How to realize the fruits of sense gratification. How to, in other words, how to eat, sleep, mate, defend in some royal style. Based on the Vedas. Now eating, sleeping, mating, defending, the animals are doing too. Prabhupada said that the dog in the street sleeps in a garbage can. They got cats, these street dogs, street cats in the alley. So they sleep in garbage cans, so these big garbage bins, sometimes people go down from the apartment building to throw something in the garbage bin in the evening. They open and cats and dogs come flying out. That's their apartment. So Prabhupada pointed out that this happiness that the cat or dog experiences when sleeping on old banana peels and empty tin cans and rolled up newspapers and slop and all kinds of stinky garbage. He's curled up sleeping there. So that happiness, that material happiness he's experiencing in that condition is actually no different. It is the same experience as Mr. and Mrs. Foggy Bottom on the 91st floor of their skyscraper building, sleeping in a nice, comfortable feather bed. They're thinking they've really achieved the pinnacle of advancement because they have such a nice apartment with a nice view, see big glass window, and they see the whole city. And nice, comfortable bed. These beds have on the head so many buttons to push, for radio and for massage, for other things. So, but actually the sensation of sleeping is the same as the dog or cat in the garbage can. No different. Or sex life, it's the same. That experience, that sensation of sex, whether it's done also in a very nice apartment in some skyscraper, or done in the alley in the garbage can, it's the same. Eating and protecting oneself, different. These things are all the same. So Krishna didn't give the Vedic knowledge for that. That's not the purpose of Lord Krishna's Varaishchasaya. He says by all the Vedas, Ahameva Vedya, I am to be known. Not some new way to eat, sleep, make, fancy style. So this Mimamsa, this type of study of the Vedas for the purpose of karma, yielding the fruits of sense gratification, is a waste of time. And that's why Krishna says, Puricchita, give it up. And so that's the Bhoga Dharma. That's the Dharma aimed at sense gratification. And then the other side is when one becomes frustrated with the sense gratification, when one finds it distasteful, then he may approach the Vedas from another angle of vision, but also no less selfish, no less separated from Krishna in purpose, and that is the Tyaga Dharma, the Dharma of renunciation, or Jnana Yoga. So the Jnanis, they simply want to become free of suffering. They have gotten themselves in a predicament of suffering by their karma. So now they want out. Stop the world, I want to get off. That's an old saying, old expression. So that's what they want. They just want to stop this material life, stop this personality, stop desires, stop existing, and become one with God, become one with Brahma, something like that. So with this aim in mind, they study the Vedas. But this is, again, this is not Krishna's purpose. And they do not attain the mercy of the Lord. Although they may take up Vedic study, and they may follow the Vedic Dharma with these intentions in mind, the mercy of the Lord is not available to them. The mercy of the Lord is explained in this way by Krishna himself. Raga dvesha vimukta vishayan indriyas charan atma vashaya vijayatma prasada marigachiti. Who attains my prasad? Who attains my mercy? That is he who raga dvesha vimukta. That is he who becomes free. Vimukta. Vimukta means to become free or liberated from what? Raga dvesha. Raga means this attachment, attraction to sensual pleasures. And dvesha means the opposite, repulsion from sensual pleasures. Both are two sides of the same coin. Prabhupada used to give a very nice example of if you're walking down the street and you see someone has left what's called a portemonnaie or wallet, their money bag, someone has dropped it on the side of the street. So if your reaction is, oh, my lucky day. And you take it and put it in your own pocket. Now it's mine. Then you're what is called, what they say in India, boka. You're a rascal. Then you're a rascal. You're a thief. You're as good as a thief. Out, someone has dropped their money and you took it, put it in your pocket. You're charged with thievery. So that's rascaldom. But also, another kind of rascaldom is that one sees the money and one thinks, oh, I don't want to become entangled in this. Someone dropped their money here, that means I have to go to police station or this or that. Too much hassle. Who knows? And so much trouble may come from my touching this. So I just leave it here. Go my own way. So this is also not good. This is not responsible. But if one sees the money and takes it with the intention of finding the owner and returning it to him, that is when we giving this example from ordinary society. So that person is considered a good citizen. You see, you'll read about it in the newspaper. Such a person, they report about him. They don't report about the person who puts the money in his pocket, except to say that police captured him. And someone who just walks by and doesn't take the money, thinking it's too much trouble, he certainly won't be glorified in society. But one who takes the money and finds out the little old lady or whoever it was who dropped it and says, here's your money back. Then news reporters are there to click, here's an honest man. Here's an honest man. And mayor of the city will give reward. So like that, if we take this material manifestation instead of the portemonnaie, the wallet, but take this human body, take this material world, this material life. So, if one tries to appropriate this for himself, for his own enjoyment, he's a rascal. If one tries to reject it, neglect it, I don't want to become involved, let me go, he's also another kind of rascal. But if one accepts, but with the higher purpose, to return this to Krishna, to offer this to the lotus feet of Krishna, then among jivas, among spirit souls, parts and parcels of Krishna, this is the good citizen. This is Krishna's devotee. There's no raga dvesha. No? There's no raga means attachment, let me enjoy this, dvesha means so. Let me not become entangled. So raga dvesha vimukta he's liberated. Vishayan indriyas chara. Atma vashaya vidyayatma prasadamani gacchati. His senses are controlled. How? Controlled in the service of the Lord. It's not that he's blind and deaf and dumb, like the jnanis would like to be. They want to stop all sense activity. But he uses his senses. For instance, he uses his eyes only to see for Krishna. Only as Krishna directs. In that way he uses his eyes. Only as Krishna directs. In that way he uses his ears. But what is that direction? That's been explained. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam. This ninefold process of Saranavati. This is the authorized engagement for our senses. In these ninefold processes, all of our senses, 10 senses, that means 5 active and 5 knowledge acquiring, and then there's the 11th sense, the mind, they will all be engaged in their proper business. Beginning with Shravanam, hearing. Hearing from Krishna. And as Prabhupada explains, the benefit is ours. Krishna is so kind. Krishna, he's Atmarama, he's transcendental. He doesn't need our service, but he's so kind to provide. He gives himself, just like the deity. The Lord, he so kindly appears as the deity. He doesn't have to come. It's not that he's hungry for 6 offerings a day. It's not that if we don't put clothes on him, then he's, naked. It's not this. It's not that he wants to have nice crown on his head. Like some, like they have in this time of year actually. It's fashion season. So in Paris especially, they have these fashion shows. So these models are being dressed up and parading around. So it's not like this. It's not for sense gratification. But it's Krishna's mercy that you want to become, you, my devotee, this is your desire to become raga dvesha vimukta to become free of attachment and fear. So very well, then I will appear, I will descend here as Archa Vigraha, as deity incarnation, so that you can use your senses in my service. That's all. The benefit is yours. Krishna is not taking benefit. Because Krishna is Atmarama. This has been nicely presented in Gopal Tapani Upanishad. When the gopis met with Krishna, Srimati Radharani and the gopis met with Krishna in the middle of the night in Vrindavan forest. And actually Krishna was late, so they were curious, why have you come late tonight, our Lord? And he replied, I've been meeting with the great sage, Durvas, who is staying in his ashram on the other side of the Jamuna. So he was glorifying Durvas to the gopis, and they naturally wanted to go and render some service to Durvasa Muni. If Krishna recommends this sage, then we must certainly take his mercy. But it was the middle of the night. How could they cross the Jamuna? So Lord Krishna said, don't worry, you just go to Jamuna Devi and pray to her that in the name of Lord Krishna, the perfect brahmachari, please give us passage. So they did this, and Jamuna Devi parted and let them cross on dry land. So that way they could render service to Durvasa Muni. They cooked for him. Every gopi brought a pot of food. He ate everything. Now Durvasa, his name means one who, asa means to eat. Durva means grass, a kind of grass, darba grass, which is used in Vedic ceremonies. So it means, his name means one who survives only eating the juice of the darba grass, which means he's extremely austere. And yet he was eating every pot of foodstuff brought by all these gopis. Unlimited gopis. He ate everything. And then the gopis wanted to rejoin Krishna, so they asked Durvas, how can we cross? At this time of night there's no boat. He said, go to Jamuna Devi and bow and pray that in the name of Durvas, who eats only the grass, the darba grass, please let us pass. So they went and did that, and Jamuna Devi parted her waves and they could cross on dry land. So when they returned to Krishna, Srimati Radharani, she was very curious to know, how is it possible that Jamuna Devi parts her waters, first of all in the name of Krishna, the perfect brahmachari, who's meeting with us in the middle of the night. And secondly, in the name of Durvas, who's eating every pot each one gopi cooked. And yet he's supposed to be Durvas. How is it possible? And Lord Krishna, he very kindly explained that I am Atmarama and Durvasa Muni, who is my pure devotee. This Durvas, by the way, is not the same Durvas who harassed Maharaj Ambarish. There is a transcendental Durvasa Muni who is a resident of Vrindavan, who loves the Lord in this particular flavor as a great sage. And Krishna comes and deals with him as a cowherd boy would deal with a great sage by showing him all respect and honor. And Durvas, his service to the Lord is to give him blessings. So anyway, Lord Krishna explained to the gopis that I am Atmarama and Durvasa Muni is Atmarama. We're self-satisfied. We don't need anything. I don't come here to meet with you in this forest in the middle of the night because I am a lusty young man who needs to satisfy his senses, who is driven by his senses into the arms of young girls like the lusty young men of this world. They're actually not Atmaram at all. They're Godasa. They're simply the servants of their senses. But I'm not like that. I don't have to be here with you to feel happiness. I am myself the very form of complete transcendental happiness. Purna Ananda. So why am I here? Because you love me. You worship me in this mood, in this conjugal mood. So this is my mercy. Therefore I come. And similarly, Durvasa, actually, he doesn't need to eat anything. But because you cooked for him and he wanted to bless you, he ate everything. So this is the position of the Lord. He doesn't need to accept our service. We should never think that. We should never think that he is dependent upon us. Of course, Mother Yashoda, she thinks like that. That is her ecstasy. But we should never think in some materialistic way. Materialistic people, you see again, Karma Mimamsa. Karma Mimamsa philosophers, they take it in a material way. That Krishna depends upon our service, our yagyas. They actually think that if we don't perform the yagyas according to the karma, kandya conception, that God will suffer. God depends upon us. And therefore God is obliged to reward us. This is the contract. We perform the yagyas, God needs that, and then he is required, like payment, to give us our results. This way we enjoy. But one should never think like that. This is nonsense. So in actual fact, the benefit is ours. But again, we should understand, what is that benefit? It is not materialistic benefit. Nor is it non-devotional liberation, merging into Brahman. That is not what one should aspire for. Rather, What is that? It's explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Palanishanu Bhava Tushti Pushti Kruttapaya. That the benefit of devotional service is tushti. There's three things mentioned. First is tushti. So, tushti means satisfaction. One becomes spiritually satisfied at heart. Thus, raga dvesha vimuktais too. Thus one becomes free of attachment and fear. Or, yes, attachment and fear of entanglement. Because he's completely satisfied at heart. Tushti. Spiritually satisfied. And then, what is another benefit? Pushti. Pushti means he becomes spiritually nourished. Srila Prabhupada mentioned this in the purport. Developing one's love of Godhead, one's relationship with Krishna more and more. This is the result of devotional service. Pushti. One's spiritual in Srila Prabhupada's books, they become more and more real to us, more and more realized by us, as we continually, day after day, render devotional service. This is nourishment. And then Kruttapaya. Kruttapaya means, it actually means satisfaction of hunger. But in this example, it means more than just hunger. The example is of a person who eats. When a person eats, then automatically he's satisfied. He's nourished, satisfied by the good taste of the food. He's nourished by the vitamins, minerals, all these things that are contained in the food. And Chuttapaya, the distress that he was feeling of hunger, that is abated. So we're all distressed in this material world by so many what are called Vega pushings, passions, Vacho Vega, Manasa Vega, Jiva Vega, Udara Pasta Vega, Krodha Vega. The pushings of the mind, the anger, the words, the tongue, the belly, the genital. These senses are very enraged, very ferocious, very demanding. Satisfy us, pushing constantly. And so the materialistic person, he's always in distress, even when he serves these masters. They prove to be bad masters. They're not pleased. They want more. What? This is all you brought? No! Get rid of this. I don't want it. More. So this is the position. Trut means one is always distressed by these demands of the senses and the mind. Truttapaya, by rendering devotional service, these demands are abated. They are solved. They disappear from the consciousness. So these three ways: tushti, satisfaction; pushti, nourishment; and truttapaya, the driving away of the distresses of material desire. These are the benedictions, or the mercy that comes from devotional service. This is what the devotee should aspire for in his service. These three goals. These are what are recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam. All right. Are there any questions?
We have reels to those related to Krishna, and I heard that this can be in the physical platform, in mental, intellectual, and spiritual platform. So how does this relate to us in all these stages?
Surrendering to Krishna?
When we don't surrender in these 4 stages.
When? I can't.
When we don't surrender.
We don't surrender.
Want surrender to Krishna. You know these 4 stages.
Yeah, well, surrender begins, you see. It's like some people, they think there's a certain class of pseudo-devotees who say that surrender means only, as you see here, conjugal bhava, madhura bhava. This is the surrender. So you have to immediately surrender in that way. So the sahajas, they try to cultivate these sentiments from the material platform. That's why they're called prakriti sahaja. This word sahaja means cheap. They think, first of all, the first mistake is they think it is easy to surrender to Krishna like that, as the gopis surrender to Krishna. They think this is something I can do. And prakriti means material, so they begin their surrendering, of course, on the material platform. And they end up, as it is said, throwing mud into transcendence. They get everything wrong, it just becomes imitation, just a very, very extremely offensive and perverted form of lust. So we should understand surrender in practical terms. Krishna has said, you must surrender. Take it personally. The Sarvadharma Parichaja means you, doesn't mean someone else. It means you. It means Arjuna, but Arjuna is the example for all of us. So, then how do we carry out this order? Krishna has demanded surrender. Well, it's all there in Bhagavad Gita. How did Arjuna surrender to Krishna? Shishisteham sharimam tvam prapam. Now I'm a soul surrendered unto you. Now I'm your disciple, please instruct me. This is the relationship. One surrenders as a disciple to spiritual masters. So Krishna is the original spiritual master. And he's represented by the Diksha and Shiksha Guru. So this is where surrender, practical surrender, begins. Srila Prabhupada said that at least we should accomplish this in our relationship with Krishna. That we should surrender to him as Arjuna did on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And then what follows when one surrenders as disciple, then one fights for Krishna. One takes up Krishna's mission and fights for Krishna. When Srila Prabhupada was visiting New York in 1976, actually already the symptoms of his final illness were just starting to manifest in his body. So at that time he was still traveling and preaching, but he was having constant heart pains and kidney pains and other things. So Srila Prabhupada was leaving New York. He'd been staying at this magnificent building, 13th floor building in Manhattan. He'd attended the Rath Yatra. He was very pleased with the way that his ISKCON mission had developed in New York. Prabhupada had come to New York in 1965 to begin everything there. So how happy he was. You see, after only 10 years, what had come out from his preaching efforts. So as he was leaving New York Temple, coming down the elevator was filled up with sannyasis and senior disciples who were seeing Srila Prabhupada off. So Srila Prabhupada returned to them and said, I just want one benediction. I only seek one blessing in my life, and that is that I might use my every breath, my every strength only for fighting for Krishna. So this is what it means. One should accept Krishna as Guru, as one's master, as Arjuna did, and then fight for Krishna. Spend all of his energy after having surrendered in fighting for Krishna. That is surrender. That is practical. So fighting for Krishna, as you mentioned, these levels, bodily, what is it? Bodily level, intellectual, sensual, mental, spiritual, everything. On all these levels, we should 100% engage our energy in fighting for Krishna. And then, Krishna being pleased with our sacrifice, then he engages his devotee in further and further devotional service. That is arranged by Krishna. According to Srila Prabhupada, again about this point of desiring to surrender to Krishna in the most intimate, confidential way. Prabhupada says, first you deserve, then desire. So you can deserve such a position of intimate service with Krishna by surrendering to Krishna as servant to master and fighting, giving every ounce of energy in Krishna's service. Fighting for Krishna as Arjuna did. And that way one becomes deserving of further mercy. But to take surrender as some kind of esoteric, abstract, very, very, you see, intimate thing, and then try to jump in one step from here. We're on the conditional platform now. To jump in one step from here right into the picture. Assuming one's manjari form. Well, one will just bounce against the picture. Fall on the floor. It won't be possible. That is not the way to enter Krishna's pastime. Krishna's pastimes begin here. Krishna has come. He came 5,000 years ago. He came 500 years ago. He's here now. Krishna Nam Avatar, in the form of his holy name. So we have to fight to advance Srila Prabhupada's mission throughout the world. Every one of us has a swarup in that mission offered right now. And by accepting that, then it's just like in the army, you join the army, there's war. You don't join as general. You don't go down to the recruiting station. Yes, I want to be general. No, you come in on the lowest platform, or according to your qualification. But you don't come in as general. And then in whatever position you're placed, you fight. You show that I am a dedicated soldier. And then the reward will come. If you stick to it, if you're very fearless and very expert, you may become general in the future. That's automatic. But actually, the main thing, as they say, do your duty. Uncle Sam wants you. That's the main thing. That is actually what surrender is. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Suhotra Swami ki jai.